If you've ever worked in a factory, you know the very first rule every worker learns. Never go anywhere near a machine before making sure the power source is completely shut off. That's a rule written in the blood of people who lost limbs or their lives over a single second of carelessness. That's why, when the detective told me after the incident that the machine that swallowed my coworker was still running after the power to the entire factory was cut, I thought he was trying to test my memory, because I was right there and I saw the main breaker panel being shut off right in front of me. I saw every single production line grind to a halt at the exact same moment, except for one machine. And to this day, no one has been able to explain why that was the only machine that kept spinning. My name is Ryan. I used to work as a production line operator at a vegetable dehydration and packaging plant in Wisconsin. The plant ran 24/7, taking in hundreds of tons of carrots, onions, peppers, and potatoes coming in from nearby farms before they were washed, chopped, dried, and then packed into bags designated for restaurants and food companies. I'd been working the night shift for almost 2 years because the pay was better, and because the factory was much quieter after midnight. Most of the workers on that shift had known each other for years, which is why my relationship with my coworker, Mike, was more of a friendship than just a workplace connection. We were constantly swapping tasks and grabbing coffee together during breaks, and I never once saw him take safety rules lightly or risk his neck inside the plant. The machine he operated was known among the workers as the rotary dryer, a massive steel cylinder over 30 feet long that rotated slowly, with hot air blowing through it to dry the vegetables before they moved on to the packaging department. No worker was allowed to open the maintenance door or get anywhere near the internal parts without performing a procedure called lockout/tagout, a mandatory system that prevents the machine from being energized during maintenance. Everyone knew this rule, and Mike was the most compliant out of all of us. One night, it was pushing 12:30 a.m. That night, the production line stopped due to a clog inside the dryer. This kind of breakdown had happened dozens of times before, and fixing it never took more than 10 minutes. The supervisor hit the stop button, then locked out the machine's power supply, and placed the red maintenance padlock on the switch, a step you couldn't bypass without the key he carried in his pocket. I saw it with my own eyes because I was standing right next to him. Mike stepped through the front maintenance hatch holding a small flashlight, while I stayed outside getting the tools ready that he'd need to clear the clog. We were only a few feet apart, and I could hear his voice talking from inside the metal cylinder. He asked me to hand him the long wrench, so I told him I'd go grab it from the nearby locker. I was gone for no more than 30 seconds. Then I heard the scream. It wasn't an ordinary scream of pain, it was a short, sharp shriek that cut off abruptly. I sprinted back to the machine as fast as I could and found the maintenance door still open, but Mike wasn't answering anymore. I called out his name multiple times, but I got no response. And the second I got close to the dryer's hatch, I heard a sound I knew all too well. The deep rumble of the main motor slowly starting to turn. I took a step back in utter shock. The dryer was running, even though the maintenance lock was still hanging right there in place. And even though the breaker panel was completely shut off. And even though I was the person who saw everything shut down less than a minute ago. For a single second I froze in my tracks. Then I sprinted toward the emergency stop button mounted on the side of the machine and slammed it with all my strength. Nothing changed. The sound of the metal cylinder kept spinning at the exact same slow speed, as if the button didn't even exist. Pretty quickly, the rest of the workers rushed over after hearing the scream. The first to arrive was the shift supervisor. He looked at the red lock hanging on the power switch, then at the breaker panel that was still in the off position, and didn't say a word. He ran straight to the main breaker that fed half the entire factory and double-checked himself to make sure it was cut. At that moment, all the exhaust fans stopped, the lights went out across a huge section of the production line, and a heavy silence fell over the factory, except for one single sound. The rotary dryer was still spinning. Its rotation was slow and steady, just as if it were running on normal power. The supervisor grabbed a flashlight, leaned down in front of the maintenance hatch, and called out, "Mike, if you can hear me, speak up." No response came. One of the technicians decided to step closer, but the supervisor shut him down immediately. Safety regulations strictly forbade putting anyone inside a machine until they verified it was fully stopped, no matter the circumstances. We dialed 911 right away, and in less than 10 minutes, first responders were on the scene. The very first thing they did was check the power source. They opened the main panel and used multimeters to ensure no electrical voltage was reaching the motor. The reading was 0. After that, they brought in a portable generator just to run lighting, since a huge part of the plant was pitched in darkness after the main breaker was pulled. It took over half an hour for the maintenance crew to finally stop the cylinder from turning using the mechanical brakes on the drive system, a backup measure used in emergencies when the motor fails. Nobody was talking. Everyone was watching that metal door in dead silence, waiting to find Mike injured or knocked unconscious. But when the rescuers opened the maintenance hatch all the way, the cylinder was empty. There was nobody in there. They shined flashlights into every corner. Then 2 of them stepped inside after securing the machine. They searched every square inch, but they didn't find Mike. At first, we thought he might have slipped out during the chaos without anyone seeing. But his hard hat was inside the cylinder, and his work gloves were right next to it. As for the 2-way radio he carried on his belt, it was still working, emitting a broken static sound from inside the machine. The police launched an official investigation that very night because the disappearance of a worker inside a factory packed with cameras was no ordinary incident. They reviewed security footage from over 20 cameras covering every hallway and production line. We watched the tapes with the investigators over and over again. The first camera showed Mike stepping into the maintenance hatch. The second camera showed me walking away to fetch the tool. Roughly 30 seconds later, I came sprinting back after hearing the scream. And during those 30 seconds, not a single camera showed anyone coming out of the machine, nor anyone going in. Not even a worker getting anywhere near it. Mike was the last person seen entering the cylinder, and he never showed up again after that. At first, the police thought he might have managed to exit from another side, but the dryer's design didn't allow for that. It only had one access hatch, with 0 side exits a human being could fit through. Plus, all the vegetable conveyor lines were turned off and way too small for a grown adult to pass through anyway. 2 days later, part of the plant was shut down to finish the investigation, while the rest of the workers returned to work in other departments. I kept trying to convince myself that the detectives would find a logical explanation until the morning of the 3rd day arrived. One of the police officers called me into the security monitor room. He said they noticed something weird on the camera tapes and wanted to see if I remembered it. He replayed the clip in slow motion. Mike went into the machine, then I entered the frame less than a minute later. But just 2 seconds before I reached it, something appeared that nobody had noticed the first time. On the shiny metal surface of the cylinder, there was a reflection of a person standing behind me. Someone wearing the exact same factory uniform, looking as if they were watching what was happening. The creepy part was, the camera itself showed absolutely nobody standing behind me. In the days that followed, the factory felt more like a crime scene than a place of work. The machine was sealed off with red tape, and management strictly prohibited anyone from approaching it until the investigation wrapped up. Engineers from the manufacturer came in alongside a team of industrial safety experts and completely dismantled the control system. They tested the motor, gearbox, brake system, electronic control unit, and even the backup power supply. Their final report was clear, yet shocking at the same time. From an engineering standpoint, it was physically impossible for the dryer to rotate after the power was cut like that. The motor was entirely electric, with no batteries, backup generators, or any system that would allow it to run on its own. As for the rotation we all witnessed, they couldn't find a single explanation for it. Some tried to claim the cylinder might have kept moving due to inertia, but that theory was thrown out instantly because the camera footage showed the machine stayed completely motionless for over 3 full minutes before it started spinning again. Nobody found a trace of evidence to explain Mike's disappearance. So, the police officially ruled the case a disappearance while on the clock, a phrase I'd never heard in any investigation before. I went back to work 3 weeks later, not because I wanted to or because I loved the place. On the contrary, I couldn't stand being there anymore. I went back because I needed the paycheck. The factory wasn't the same. Every worker started eyeing each other before stepping inside any machine, and safety protocols became stricter than ever. As for the dryer itself, the company replaced it with a new machine after deciding to tear down the old one and ship it back to the manufacturer for a full teardown inspection. I was right there the day the crane showed up to haul it away. As the workers were unbolting the last few screws, we heard a faint metallic scraping sound coming from inside the cylinder. Everyone stopped, and one of the techs figured a tool must have fallen inside during the teardown. He grabbed a flashlight, stuck his head into the maintenance hatch, and pulled back out seconds later, pale as a sheet. He motioned for everyone to come take a look. There were long scratches on the inner wall of the cylinder, parallel lines, as if someone had used a sharp piece of metal to etch something onto the steel from the inside. After wiping away the leftover vegetable residue and dust, the full word came into view. Turn it off. It wasn't freshly carved, it was caked under old layers of operational residue, meaning it was written a long time ago. Nobody could explain how that writing got inside the cylinder, because that part of the machine could only be accessed during full maintenance overhauls, which were always documented with multiple people present. The police confiscated the metal section bearing the inscription, but the case remained unchanged. They didn't find Mike, and they didn't find who wrote the message. 2 months later, I quit for good. I couldn't take the sound of the production lines anymore, or the smell of hot metal, or even the sight of work clothes. I tried to convince myself that I was leaving it all behind me. But 6 months later, I got a call from one of the detectives. He said they wanted to meet up regarding a new piece of information. He told me the manufacturer had checked the machine's serial number registry, and it turned out this wasn't the first plant it had been installed in. 8 years before arriving in Wisconsin, it was running at another vegetable drying plant in Iowa. I asked him what that had to do with anything. A short silence hung over the line, then he said, "Because we contacted the management at the old plant." My breath caught in my throat, he added. They had a similar disappearance incident. A maintenance worker stepped into the cylinder after lockout/take-off procedures were completed, and his coworkers heard him scream. When they opened the machine up, he wasn't there. Management closed the incident back then as an unexplained disappearance and sold the machine years later as used equipment. I asked the detective for a copy of that old report, and it arrived 5 days later. The very last page contained a list of that worker's missing personal belongings. A hard hat, gloves, and a two-way radio. The exact same things as Mike. I shut the file and never opened it again. But about a year later, I was driving near the old industrial park and decided to pass by the factory out of pure curiosity. The building had been demolished and the lot was completely empty except for one thing. On the edge of the lot, there was a flatbed truck loaded with used industrial equipment, getting ready to pull out. I caught a glimpse of the massive steel cylinder strapped to the trailer. I recognized it instantly by the long scratch mark near the maintenance hatch. I walked up to the driver and asked him where he was hauling it. He smirked while checking his shipping manifest and said, to a new plan over in Pennsylvania. The truck started rolling away slowly, and as it pulled further down the road, I saw the maintenance door rattle once, then twice, as if somebody was banging on it from the inside. What the hell did I just see? Ever since then, I've been living in pure terror. Mike's face won't leave my mind, and I keep wishing I knew where he is and what happened to him. I just don't know what to do anymore.